Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good afternoon. Okay, the way I'd like to open this up today is to ask people how they're coming along with their development of concentration, one-pointedness. We talked about how to develop it and what to practice on to develop it and why you are practicing that. The fruit or the advantage of practicing concentration. Simply put, it gives us the skill to think about what we want to think about and not what the sense gates are demanding we think about. It frees us from, or it gives us the freedom to put our attention where we want to put it. That's what concentration does. And that's the gift that it gives us. So how are we coming along with that? Laughing? So that means not too good? Or does it mean very good?
Well, the reason I'm laughing is it seems like the better I get at it, the more I notice my lapses.
Okay.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and you have to pay attention when you're driving to an audiobook, especially when it's a little technical. And I find my mind drifting off to something I've seen on the road or something else, and then I have to hit the back button a couple of times. So I kind of measure my concentration by how many times I've got to hit the back button on a book to make sure I've heard it, instead of just, the easiest thing would be just to pay attention to the book the whole time. But
You would think.
It would be a lot easier, but it'd be simpler, but it's certainly not easy to keep the attention right where it belonged there.
Okay. So what you are observing is your unskillfulness in paying attention to what you want to pay attention to.
Exactly.
And this has been going on forever. But now that you are deciding to give it some attention, to develop it, to develop the skill of it, you are more aware, more conscious of drifting away from that intention. How do you conversate with yourself when you find this happening?
Sometimes I'm kind with myself, but most of the time I mention to myself how simple a task it is and how I should be able to do it and how I'm not very bright for not being able to do it.
Mm-hmm. So you kick yourself in the butt. Yeah. Okay. Well, the instruction should be that you want to be kind to yourself when you find yourself in those lapses, because that's a development of skill too. The knowing that I've glided off of my intentional object and I'm someplace else, I'm in another world, I'm on another object. That is development. That is something that should be appreciated, because usually we drift and we just stay where we are and we're not really sure why we're there, but we're there, and so we might as well be here and take care of what I've got to take care of in this particular situation. So you're doing good. But what do we respond to? We respond to kindness and encouragement. You know, we all do. We all appreciate that pat on the back to say, well, you know, you're not there yet, but you're getting closer. So we respond to reward. So be kind to yourself and acknowledge the fact that your awareness, your inclination to be closer to the object of your intention is working for you. And just treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. Okay? All right. Anyone else? Yes.
So every morning I sit for about 20, 25 minutes, but I've noticed that the number of objects I'm concentrating on varies. So it jumps from bringing in the wholesome to loving kindness statements, to the space around the aggregates, to the breath, to it. I mean, it's constantly jumping. I'm concentrating on something, but it's changing.
Now you're concentrating on everything. And this is what we're trying to develop.
But they're all wholesome.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
You could argue for that. Okay, but that's not the exercise, though, is it? You know, it's like getting 3 boyfriends when you only want one.
But they're all entertaining.
Until they're not, and then you want them to go. Like, do you have something else to do? Why are you hanging around me? Okay. Begin in the beginning and in the end, not to forget why you're there in the first place. And that's to stay with one thing. Okay. And we reward ourselves for mediocrity. You know, well, you know, I kind of doing it, I'm here. But there's a purpose and a reason for developing skillfulness and concentration. Because one day you're going to be thinking about something that you don't want to deal with, that brings you unhappiness, that brings you unskillfulness. And you won't know how to get out of that. And you'll be like the average guy who walks around talking about how unhappy they are and how they wish the world were different and how they wish people around them were different. So it's fortunate that you haven't had to deal with that for a long time. But remembering the object, the intention of the exercise, and sticking with it, you know, sticking to it. And that's not that's a visual to see that your object, your intention should be clung to, stuck to. Not desired, but remember that this is the thing that's going to bring you closer to what you need to do. And what do you need to do? It's that we encounter in media and in friendships and relationships things that drag us into drama and cause us to articulate how this also makes us unhappy, makes us suffer, makes us want to be someplace else. And what we're learning how to do is to be where we are and be okay with that. And that means that I must develop the capacity to stay still right where I am and not have any issues with that. And the only way that I can do that is to be able to focus my attention on my intention. So that whether what comes to me outside of that realm is good or bad or happy or sad, it's okay because I'm not going to pay attention to any of it. I have set my schedule for the day. I've listed my priorities for the day. And that's what I'm sticking to. That's what I'm going to focus on. So don't be okay with mediocrity. It's not that we're going to beat ourselves up and say, well, bad dog, bad dog. But it's to realize that that is not what I'm here to do. That, this is not what I'm sitting down to do or standing up to do or walking to do. But I'm trying to develop the skill that I know I have in paying attention to one thing. And that's my choice. That's not the choice of the sense gates. That's my choice, whoever that my is. We know it's not the sense gates, but the sense gates intrude and try to pull us off of our root, off of our stump, and pay attention to what they want us to look at. It's like walking with a 2-year-old,
They're happy, but they're so...
No, they're happy, but the one that's walking with them isn't happy.
I just want to say this is actually very comparable to my mind stream throughout the day. So I just realized that me sitting, trying to produce all this wholesomeness is very comparable to during the day. And I remember there was a Dharma contemplation how one that performs evil and one that is striving for virtue are both suffering because they're trying so hard in one way or another. Can you remind me what that's? Do you know what I'm talking about? That passage?
No, we can talk about it though. I don't remember specifically what you're talking about, but I do understand.
You understand? Okay.
I understand why they both could cause suffering.
Yes.
But the practice is that we learn how to be equanimable in that space of not having what we want. I mean, what the other another parameter of hurt or discomfort or dis-ease is not having what you want. Not getting what you want on this particular day. And the skill that we're developing is the ability to be in our environment, in our moment, and to be okay with that moment. Not insisting that it be the way we want it to be, because we know that with the agent of impermanence, that nothing is usually what you want it to be for so long or forever. And we find that morphing is what is causing our dilemma, our uncomfortability. And so in our ability to stay focused right here, and right here means I am with myself with everything else that's going on. It's not that you're not aware that nothing else is going on, but that you're not pulled into the drama of all of the other somethings that's going on. That they're surrounding you and they're dancing, and what they're doing is competing for your attention. It's like having 1,000 clowns around you. And everybody's jumping up and down. Look at me, dance with me, talk to me. That's what the sense gates are doing. And you're going, yeah, I'm here and I'm aware of you. That's like being aware of the nimitta. But I'm not going to put my attention on you because then I'm distracted from my intention. My intention is just to be right here still and not being upset by or pulled off by anything else that's going on. And so, go back to that place and be there, but stay there. And don't allow the clowns to distract you. Because that's all they're there to do. You know, and they're just... They go home and brag at the end of the day. They go back to the tent. So don't let them do that. The simplest explanation for why the practice and what's the benefit of the practice is just to realize in simplicity we're talking about finding the mind in a place of trouble, agitation, disturbance. And saying, okay, do I want to be disturbed and agitated, or do I want to be still and peaceful? Well, the obvious answer is I want to be still and peaceful. Well, how do I get to a thought, an image, where I'm still and peaceful? Whatever that may be, loving kindness, compassion, whatever that might be for you. And to have the will, because this is important, to have the desire or the will to abandon the unwholesome thought that's bringing you agitation and move to a clearer, sunnier, happier thought that brings you stillness. That's ultimately the only two extremes that you want to go to. Do I want to stay in unhappiness, or do I want to be in happiness? And for me, the answer is I want to be in happiness. I want to be in peace. The Buddha called it there goes that Parkinson's again.
Pleasant abiding?
Pleasant abiding here and now. Thank you. That's it. Do I want to be unpleasant and abide, or do I want to be pleasant and abide? And most of us say we want to be pleasant. So we exercise the trigger that causes us to put our attention, our consciousness, on the stimulus that brings us peace. Now, that seems like an oxymoron, stimulus and peace. But it isn't. It is how the sense gates work. They all are bombarding us with things all the time. Again, the clown's paying attention, dancing around. And it's up to us to have the discipline, the will to stay with what we know will bring us that instead of being distracted by those other things. And so we look today in the world, and all around us, these clowns are clamoring for our attention. And all of these things are happening that are not what we would define as good things or peaceful things or happy things, like hurricanes and forest fires and shootings and, But what we must do is to be able to be stable in the center of that. That's what we're developing, to be stable in the center of that. No matter what signals might be sent to us, we operate the on and off, the ones and zeros, so that we will get the one that works for us. Remember, the world is multidimensional. What I mean by that is that the world is not absolute and single in its presentation to all of us. And this is why we see different things. This is why we define our world differently with the same group of people that we poll, that it's not absolute truth. It's a variation of lots of things. And so we can make the world whatever we want the world to be. Or we can allow external forces to make us think the world is the way they want us to think the world to be. The power is the development of being able to live in the world that you want. Because it's all ultimately contained within your own choices that you allow to go into the mind stream and influence the mind stream, influence perception. It's really an awesome awareness to have that lets us know I don't have to feel this way, I don't have to think this way, I can think another way. And that will be my world. And we have a tendency to minimize the power that brings to us. You know, we say, oh, that's too simple. It can't work that way. But this is how we create our world, through the sense gates. And if we truly realize that and utilize that, then all we have to do is switch from one to the other. You know, which one do I want to see? Do I want to see the dog do in the grass, or do I want to see the roses on the bush? It's my call. It's my choice. All of that is available. Okay. So the first thing we do is to pick an object that allows us to be peaceful. And you want to practice having an exercise that immediately pulls you back to your intention. You know, that you're just not aware that you're distracted, because you're aware that you're distracted, but you're in the distraction. So you're not where it is that you have intended to be. So the trap, or the trap is to be okay with that. But you're still not being where you want to be. So the next step is to develop an exercise that will help you get back to where you want to be. Not just, I know I was someplace else and now I'm back. But to immediately, when you are aware of the distraction, that you develop an exercise that pulls you back, that brings you back. One is counting. Because again, what you're doing is you're not only using whatever object you're using to hold you in the moment, to keep you in a space, keep you in stillness, but you're using another instrument that sort of fortifies that intention. So most often, you're paying attention to breath, and you're also counting breath, which gives you a double whammy on your object. And you'll find that it'll be a little more difficult for the clowns to pull you off your cushion. So see if that works for you. Remembering that it's not the goal of the exercise to know that you've been distracted. You know that all the time when you get, when you almost run a red light, or you almost run over a little kid running across the street, or you turn down a corner because this is the way you usually go to work, but you're not going to work today, you're going someplace else. All of those kinds of things that we're aware of that let us know that we're distracted. So we know we're distracted. But what we want to do is, how do we keep concentrated? And how do we use tools that will reinforce that, to make us better at that? Well, the first way to make it better is to do it more often. That's about developing that skill of practice. Where the more we do it, the better we get at doing it. Right? Okay. Does anybody else want to talk? Yes, Scylla.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to share that for years I've heard about counting the breath, but I've resisted it. But I've started to do it recently. It's been very, very helpful. I only go to 5. I go in 1, out 1, and generally to 5. Now maybe I can work up to 10.
Not
but
necessary.
What's that?
It's not necessary. You pick. The suggestion is no less than 5, no more than 10.
Okay.
So 5 is good if that's what works for you. Don't.
And thank you. And then I'll go into saying, if I'm pronouncing it right, Budo. Budo. And what I find with those two things is it kind of ramps up my commitment to what I'm doing.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on subconsciously or whatever, but it gives me that little extra juice to stick with it. At first I do my own kind of very brief kind of loving kindness, if you will, a little bit of affirmation, and then I go into that because I've been having trouble, being concentrated with mindfulness in my meditation in recent times, but I never gave up hope, and I stuck in there, and I've found that those two things really do help me, the breathing, counting, and the other.
Okay.
I feel more of a connection to the Buddha Dharma through taking some of those suggestions.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Buddha. Like in, bu, do, out, bu, do. Okay. It's just another way of giving yourself something to stick to your intention. So remember, the way this starts out is that we clear the decks, if you will, of all of the stuff that we drag through our day. Which means that we get rid of all covetousness, all greed, and all unhappiness or displeasure for the world. That's the first thing you want to do. That's the stuff we drag around with us all the time. That we feel is an integral part or a necessary part of our survival. And it's to say, get rid of all of that stuff, because that just drags you, that keeps you in the world. Like you got one eye on your object, but you've also got one eye on the world. It keeps you in the world, so you want to disassociate yourself with the world, with all of the wishes, all of the unkindnesses that you think that you've experienced in your life. Let them go. All of the wanting to make it better, different in your life, let it go. Because the way the moment is the truth of the moment. And it's our struggle with, our fighting with the moment that causes us our agitation and our stress. It says, let it go and let it be. Be all right with what it is. Yes, John.
So you have some sense of stillness, and causes and conditions have a sense that you'll be interacting more and more in the mental realm for a time period. Usually it could be some just talking to talk, but it vacillates between confusion and clarity. And to balance the stillness with the dynamic dance that the mental realm has the potentiality. So I was in a car ride, and I felt there was going to be, the ride was entering into a lot of the mental realm. And
You're too busy.
it's busy.
Remember, stillness is just about being there. It's not about having conversation with the clowns. It's not about, even acknowledging that they're there. You have this, what's called bare awareness. You have this bare awareness that things are out there. It's just like, here, you're sitting here, but there are trees out there and crows out there and dogs out there and neighbors out there. But you're not out there. You're just here.
Mm.
And if someone started up a lawnmower right now, that would be out there too. And as we practice just being a part and parcel of what's out there, what's there, without wanting to make out there be what you need it to be okay with yourself, you just let it be.
Mm.
You just, well, I'm aware of this, but I'm really paying attention to this. I know this is here, I know this is here, I know this is here. I know it's there, but I'm not going to go out and touch it. I'm not going to go out and have a conversation with it. I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not even going to pay attention to it. I'm just aware that it's there because I catch it out of the corner of my eye, but I don't do this.
Right.
It's just there.
Okay.
And so you will find that when you do that, up the road there will be an experience, perhaps, where you start to see things or hear things. But when those things occur, when those kind of strange and wonderful things present themselves in this scope of existence, I don't get excited by it and have myself pulled off my intention, have my attention distracted to something else. I know it's there. I don't even have a conversation with myself about it. That's why it's called just bare awareness. Awareness of something without any conversation about it at all. It's just, no. I don't even articulate it. I let it be.
Okay.
Because remember, this is all about concentration or non-distraction. And if I do that, I am distracted. And what happens when we do that is we fall all the way back down the hill again. We're climbing this mountain and we're getting to the top, and then we go. And the next thing we know, we're rolling all the way back down, and we have to start all over again for our climb. So it's about allowing everything to exist.
Mm.
That's obviously existing because I'm aware that it's there. But I have no desire for this to be more present than this to be. It's just the way it is. And this is about that whole acceptance thing in mindfulness, where we accept everything that presents itself in our reality, but we're not disturbed by it, we're not bothered by it, we don't want to change it, we don't care. It just is. It's just like me. I'm just here with all of this other stuff, with the thousands of clowns that are around me. Yes.
I think I had a perfect example of that the other day. I was I usually do my meditation in the morning, which I've heard several different things, like, you want to really push your practice, do it in the afternoon. After all, the dukkha has been experienced for the day. But the morning seems to be where my mind is most clear. And it's funny because, I was sitting down, I was really ready, I was really determined, just ready to engage in my practice, and within like 5 minutes of sitting, my puppy decided to just bark incessantly. My mind immediately went to wanting to say, be quiet, stop that, stop that. After about 5 minutes, I let the barking continue, and it just went on and on. Now, granted, it grated on me. I could feel myself wanting to tell the dog to stop. But after about 10, 15 minutes of it, I was actually quite fine with the noise in the background. I could hear it. It wasn't rattling me. Now, granted, I would have preferred a quiet environment, but it's that initial wanting to control the environment. In my mind, I have this perception or a conception that the meditation environment should be quiet, nothing should be happening around me, I should be in a clear space. But honestly, that's not how the world really works.
Nope.
So, if I'm going to be able to take this outside and off the cushion, the dog is actually adding to my practice.
Yeah.
So instead of seeing it like, why is this dog doing this? I'm thinking, well, thank you for presenting this challenge to me. So, and what are your feelings? I mean, I had some people tell me that, like meditation in the evening after the day is done, the mind is busier, the mind is more cramped. It's almost like if you can do, meditating in the evenings is kind of like taking an honors level course. Whereas like in the morning before everything swamps you for the day, it's almost a little easier. I find it's easier because that's the time I have. But are there advantages, disadvantages? I mean, the Buddha probably sat there all day and all night anyway, so it didn't matter if it was afternoon or morning. So, for the elephant to charge me yet.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm much better than I used to be, and dealing with 1,600, adolescents on a daily basis, and having 2 biological adolescents of my own to deal with. Yeah, I've got my challenges. I'm definitely, I've got my practice cut out for me. Thanks.
And you've got a good teacher with your puppy.
Oh, yes. Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Doc.
I need a reminder of exactly what the sense gates are and how they distract me.
Eye, ear, nose, mouth, tongue. Eye, ear, nose, mouth, tongue, body, and mind. 6. They all are feeding you stuff every chance they get.
If I have complete awareness of the moment and become dissolved into the moment, into the interconnectedness and interdependability of the moment, if I am that, I lose self and am the moment. How can I sense the moment without those things?
Well, see, you were way ahead of us. You caught the first bus. We haven't even been talking about losing self and being a part of the moment. We're just talking about understanding that you're in the dance with the moment, but not getting distracted by it. That's at the beginning. We're at the beginning. You way ahead. Come back next week, and we'll try to catch up to where you are. No, I'm serious. I'm serious. Just when you're there, you're there. That's where you are. That place where there's no longer me, but there's just joy and concentration due to following the rules and paying attention to the breath or an object that holds your full attention, and you get pulled into it. You get absorbed into it, where you then, there's no difference between you and the other. There just isness. Okay? But stay there and wait for us. We'll be there next week. I'm serious. I'm saying that's a legitimate place to be. But we're talking about not there yet. We haven't even entered the temple yet. Okay? So no, you can't be there and not be there. Okay, wait for us though. Don't leave us. Okay, everybody's good? Okay, so what we do, again, is to eliminate all grief, worry, and greed, which means that we choose to accept the moment the way it is and not complain about it. Now, people will say, well, what's wrong with complaining? Well, that brings you unhappiness. That brings you unskillfulness, because now you're demanding that the moment be something that it isn't, and you're demanding that the moment be what you want it to be. And it encourages you to tinker with it, to move it around, to change it, to get involved with it. But the moment is just there for us to learn from. That's all it's there for. For us to find out how to be still, even with this, even with the dog barking, even with the hurricane coming. Why did the hurricane tear this up instead of that? Why did it miss Florida and tear up North Carolina? It's not important. It just happened that way. And that's what life does. It happens that way. It doesn't happen the way we want it to, no matter how much planning, no matter how much you want the picnic to be the way you want the picnic to be. No matter how much planning you put in it and intelligence you put into it and snacks you have in your basket, it's going to be a crock. And the practice and the joy comes from being able to be okay right then too. Not the way I want it to be, but the way it is. Let go and let God. That's what we're learning how to do. Take your hands off the moment. I used to always use this expression. To be present in the moment with my hands in my pockets, so that I'm not tempted to pull them out and change something around, alter something just a little bit. But to just stand there and observe and be in wonder about how fantastic this moment is and how I'm grateful that I'm still alive to be present with it. We're always bitching about the moment. And it's not about that at all. It's about finding the space between your descents and your dog and be okay. What do I have to be happy about? The people in the Bahamas, houses torn up, boats torn up, everything's torn up, but they're still there talking about it. That's what I have to be grateful about, that I'm still here, that I haven't been washed out to sea. And of course, if I've been washed out to sea, then who cares? You know, I'm okay. I transition. So you see, there's really nothing to complain about. There's nothing to really cry about. But we whine and we cry. We pick on Trump. He can't help it. Right.
As the hurricane, as a Category 5, left the Bahamas and headed toward Florida, I found myself, honestly, considering the delicious prospect of it going over and wiping Mar-a-Lago off the face of the earth. And then I immediately realized that was a violation of my precept, I vow to avoid ill will. And of course, it would also have hurt a lot of little innocent people. Still.
Yeah. Send some love. Send some love. Okay, so thank you all for your inputs and your practice, doing your practice, wanting to change, wanting to be your authentic self, whoever that might be to you. To be there, and I see the work you're doing, and I feel the work, and I see the smiles, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see the shift and the development of people that I've known for years, who just couldn't accept and couldn't believe the possibility of being different, just simply by thinking differently. The happiness that comes with that. So thank you all so very much for your support, for your kindness, for your financial support, and did the one who left the peaches in here the other day, are they here? No, they're not here. Okay, well I thank them for their peaches anyway. They hear me wherever they are. May all beings be liberated from suffering. May we be well. May we be happy. May we be peaceful. Practice your concentration. We got places to go. We got to catch up with Dawn. And you know, I'm saying this with the utmost sincerity. I mean, you've done a lot of work since me and you have known each other. You really have. I know you have. And I know it was difficult for you to do. I know it was. But you stuck with it. You didn't give up on yourself. I know there's a lot of folk who gave up and said, nah, this ain't for me. I'd rather just sing a song and pray. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as that's not the only thing you do. You got to do your work too. You can't just sing songs and pray. You got to do your work. You got to remember the innocence that we're here to help and love and be kind to. Thank you so much.